to when it was discovered and settled by Polynesians, who developed a distinct Maori culture. Like other Pacific cultures, Maori society was centered on kinship links and connection with the land, but, unlike them, it was adapted to a cool, temperate environment rather than a warm, tropical one. The first European explorer known to sight New Zealand was Dutch navigator Abel Tasman on December 13, 1642. In 1643 he charted the west coast of the North Island. His expedition then sailed back to Batavia without setting foot on New Zealand soil. British explorer James Cook, who reached New Zealand in October 1769 on the first of his 3 voyages, was the first European to circumnavigate and map New Zealand. From the late 18th century, the country was regularly visited by explorers and other sailors, missionaries, traders and adventurers. In 1840 the Treaty of Waitangi was signed between representatives of the United Kingdom and various Maori chiefs, bringing New Zealand into the British Empire and giving Maori the same rights as British subjects. Disputes over the differing translations of the treaty and settler desire to acquire land from Maori led to the New Zealand Wars from 1843. There was extensive British settlement throughout the rest of the 19th century and into the early part of the next century. The effects of European infectious diseases, the New Zealand Wars and the imposition of a European economic and legal system led to most of New Zealand's land passing from Maori to Pakeha ownership, and Maori became impoverished. The colony gained responsible government in the 1850s. From the 1890s the New Zealand Parliament enacted a number of progressive initiatives, including women's suffrage and old age pensions. After becoming a self-governing dominion with the British Empire in 1907, the country remained an enthusiastic member of the empire, and over 100,000 New Zealanders fought in World War I as part of the New Zealand Expeditionary Force. After the war, New Zealand signed the Treaty of Versailles, joined the League of Nations, and pursued an independent foreign policy, while its defense was still controlled by Britain. When World War II broke out in 1939, New Zealand contributed to the defense of Britain and the Pacific War. The country contributed some 120,000 troops. From the 1930s the economy was highly regulated and an extensive welfare state was developed. From the 1950s Maori began moving to the cities in large numbers, and Maori culture underwent a renaissance. This led to the development of a Maori protest movement which in turn led to greater recognition of the Treaty of Waitangi in the late 20th century. The country's economy suffered in the aftermath of the 1973 global energy crisis, the loss of New Zealand's biggest export market upon Britain's entry to the European Economic Community, and rampant inflation. In 1984, the fourth Labour government was elected amid a constitutional and economic crisis. The interventionist policies of the Third National Government were replaced by Rogernomics, a commitment to a free market economy. Foreign policy after 1984 became more independent, especially in pushing for a nuclear-free zone. Subsequent governments have generally maintained these policies, although tempering the free market ethos somewhat. Maori arrival and settlement. New Zealand was first settled by Polynesians from eastern Polynesia. Genetic and archaeological evidence suggests that humans emigrated from Taiwan via Southeast Asia to Melanesia and then radiated eastwards into the Pacific in pulses and waves of discovery which gradually colonized islands from Samoa and Tonga all the way to Hawaii, the Marquesas, Easter Island, the Society Islands and, finally, New Zealand. In New Zealand there are no human artifacts or remains dating earlier than the Kaharoa tephra, a layer of volcanic debris deposited by the Mount Tarawera eruption around 1314 CE. The 1999 dating of some Kior bones to as early as 100 CE was later found to be an error. New samples of rat bone mostly gave dates later than the Tarawera eruption, with only 3 samples giving slightly earlier dates. Pollen evidence of widespread forest fires a decade or two before the eruptions has been interpreted by some scientists as a possible sign of human presence, leading to a suggested first settlement period of 1280 to 1320 CE. However, the most recent synthesis of archaeological and genetic evidence concludes that, whether or not some settlers arrived before the Tarawera eruption, the main settlement period was in the decades after it, somewhere between 1320 and 1350 CE, possibly involving coordinated mass migration. This scenario is also supported by a much debated, and now largely ignored, third line of evidence, traditional genealogies which point to 1350 AD as a probable arrival date for the main founding canoes from which most Maori trace their descent. The descendants of these settlers became known as the Maori, forming a distinct culture of their own. The latter settlement of the tiny Chatham Islands in the east of New Zealand about 1500 CE produced the Moriori. Linguistic evidence indicates that the Moriori were mainland Maori who ventured eastward. There is no evidence of a pre-Maori civilization in mainland New Zealand. The original settlers quickly exploited the abundant large game in New Zealand, such as moa, which were large flightless ratites pushed to extinction by about 1500. As moa and other large game became scarce or extinct, Maori culture underwent major change, with regional differences. In areas where it was possible to grow taro and kumara, horticulture became more important. This was not possible in the south of the South Island, but wild plants such as fernroot were often available and cabbage trees were harvested and cultivated for food. Warfare also increased in importance, reflecting increased competition for land and other resources. In this period, fortified pa became more common, although there is debate about the actual frequency of warfare. As elsewhere in the Pacific, cannibalism was part of warfare. Leadership was based on a system of chieftainship, which was often but not always hereditary, although chiefs needed to demonstrate leadership abilities to avoid being superseded by more dynamic individuals. The most important units of pre-European Maori society were the whānau or extended family, and the hapu or group of whānau. After these came the iwi or tribe, consisting of groups of hapu. Related hapu would often trade goods and cooperate on major projects, but conflict between hapu was also relatively common. Traditional Maori society preserved history orally through narratives, songs, and chants. Skilled experts could recite the tribal genealogies back for hundreds of years. Arts included waikorero, song composition in multiple genres, dance forms including haka, as well as weaving, highly developed wood carving, and tamoko. New Zealand has no native land mammals, so birds. Europeans returned to New Zealand. In 1769, British naval captain James Cook of Embark Endeavour visited New Zealand, and coincidentally, only 2 months later, Frenchman Jean-François Marie de Surville, in command of his own expedition, reached the country. When Cook left on his first voyage, the sealed orders given to him by the British Admiralty ordered him to proceed to the westward between the latitude before mentioned and the latitude of 35 degrees until you discover it, or fall in with the eastern side of the land discovered by Tasman and now called New Zealand. He would return to New Zealand on both of his subsequent voyages of discovery. Various claims have been made that New Zealand was reached by other non-Polynesian voyagers before Tasman, but these are not widely accepted. Peter Trickett, for example, argues in Beyond Capricorn that the Portuguese explorer Cristóvão de Mendonça reached New Zealand in the 1520s, and the Tamil bell discovered by missionary William Colenso has given rise to a number of theories, but historians generally believe the bell is not in itself proof of early Tamil contact with New Zealand. From the 1790s, the waters around New Zealand were visited by British, French and American whaling, sealing and trading ships. Their crews traded European goods, including guns and metal tools, for Maori food, water, wood, flax and sex. Maori were reputed to be enthusiastic and canny traders, even though the levels of technology, institutions and property rights differed greatly from the standards in European societies. Although there were some conflicts, such as the killing of French explorer Marc-Joseph Marion Dufresne in 1772 and the destruction of the Boyd in 1809, most contact between Maori and European was peaceful. Early European settlement. European settlement increased through the early decades of the 19th century, with numerous trading stations established, especially in the North Island. Christianity was introduced to New Zealand in 1814 by Samuel Marsden, who travelled to the Bay of Islands where he founded a mission station on behalf of the Church of England's Church Missionary Society. By 1840 over 20 stations had been established. From missionaries, the Maori learnt not just about Christianity but also about European farming practices and trades, and how to read and write. Building on the work of the Church Missionary Society missionary Thomas Kendall, beginning in 1820, linguist Samuel Lee worked with Maori chief Hongi Hika to transcribe the Maori language into written form. In 1835 the country's first successful printing was